Here we go. Adam,
Okay.
thank you for joining us, Mr. Subcommander Tal. Do you mind if I call you Adam or?
Whatever is, I know Adam is a lot easier to say. Subcommander Tal is a
Yeah,
mouthful. So
yeah.
yeah,
You took the awesome name. A lot of people have the what handles, I guess we call them, right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
just got plain old March 10th. I decided to try and do something funny with the name with Mario and
Oh,
March 10th. March 10th is Mario Day. But then a lot of people couldn't understand that it was Mario, so I just switched it to Mario. And the Trek
okay,
dude,
okay.
the Trek
Yeah,
dude seems to be fine. But
no,
thanks for
that
being
works.
the guinea pig for me on this kind of foray into doing something different. I know you do Mr. Leslie. You got talks with Sohail on the weekends there.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I just wanted to try something different and get to know some of the people that I've been interacting with on Twitter over the past, what is it, a year and a half now? I think that I've been involved. I think Chris has done it for 2.5 years, something close to that.
Yeah, so many of us got on like or during the pandemic or during that first lockdown. But yeah, I'm happy to talk with you. I mean, it's been a nice community, nice getting to know you, and we're all content creators now. So I mean, I thoroughly encourage whatever these series of little interviews or talks, whatever that's going to turn into. I think that's great, and it's nice to have
Yeah,
a. You got a nice, reasonable voice. I feel like on Twitter, which you know how it gets sometimes. So I'm
yeah,
happy to have that kind of voice get a little more
exposure. I don't know
exactly.
if the
Yeah.
voice actually is good on video, but you're born with what you got and you kind of run with it.
Yeah, yeah. But I
So,
mean, just in terms of like your perspective, I mean, I think you take a nice
yeah.
balanced
Yeah, I
approach on
think we're kind
things.
of very similar in our approaches, and I love your insight and everything
Thank
that
you.
you come with, Star Trek related, and it's pretty awesome. So I'm
Thank you.
glad our,
Thank
our
you.
our friendship is expanding here a little bit out of Twitter. But let's just start. Where I'm fascinated to know how you liked or started watching Star Trek, or what got you into it, what made us all connected to in the first place on Twitter, Star Trek. So where's your origin story?
Yeah. Well, actually it's funny because I was talking about this the other day on something else, and I realized that if I'd been born a couple years later, I probably would have been a TNG guy. So I was born at the end of 1974, and I don't remember there not being Star Trek on the TV. I mean, there was always in reruns. My dad watched it. I watched it with him. I was aware of the show. I have a very potent memory of the empath in the background because that's such a freaky show to watch as like a
Yeah.
4 or 5 year old and see the torture scenes and that intense music and like the black box theater that that left an impression on me. But I wasn't like I preferred He-Man or I prefer I was a little kid. Star Trek was a little over my head when I was very
Yeah.
young. So it wasn't until like 85 or 86 when I was about 11 or so that I started to appreciate the show on my own. And you're entering your teenage years, so like the angst of Spock, like worrying about showing your emotions, and then like the Captain Kirk being Mr. Adventure, that that really appealed to me. That getting all the girls, that I liked all
Yeah.
that. Um, uh, if I had, if that had come a couple years later, I think you're a couple years younger than me,
Hmm.
I then TNG would have been on. I might have been absorbed into that, but no, definitely when I fell in love with Star Trek, it was with the original series, and that's what in fact, I really was very gatekeepery about the original series when TNG came out. I mean, I was one of those people who are like, I don't want this. This is not
Yeah.
Star Trek. This
How
is
can
not
you
for
have
me.
Kirk, or how can you have the Enterprise without Kirk, Spock, and
Yeah,
McCoy? Yeah,
yeah,
I
absolutely.
I definitely remember articles about that. When TNG came out, I was 7, so I was born
Mhm.
in '80.
Okay.
Um, but TOS, started it off for me. The Wrath of Khan came on ABC. I loved it. I
Yeah.
don't know what it was. I mean, what's not to love about the Wrath of Khan, right? But I don't know what drew me in as a kid. Most likely it was the ships,
Yeah.
ship porn as we call it.
Yeah.
Just the sight of the Constitution leaving that space dock is that that got me into it. But yeah, you're probably right. I think my heart gravitates towards TNG, like I want to say TOS is where it started, but when I think about it, I know more about TNG than I do TOS. And
Hmm.
I think I would watch more TNG just at a happenstance than TOS. There's a lot of episodes of TOS that I think I have to either go back upon and try to recall versus I think TNG, I just have a more solid base of understanding,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. But that time frame from 1986 to 1994, that's when I really was into Star
Hmm.
Trek. That's when, I just watched it. My whole life was encompassed by it. Go to the conventions, get the merchandise, so forth and so on. And then you might have a similar thing where you kind of left it for a while. Just other things came, during the
Yeah.
teenage years that, got other interests elsewhere.
Well, it's interesting. You were young. I mean, that you said like 86 to nine. I mean, you're like 6, 7, 8 years old when you're getting into this. And I've seen some of the pictures
Yeah.
of you in like the costumes or, the rudimentary cosplay you did as a little kid or going to conventions. I really, that's very interesting. I admire that. I mean, but yeah, when I fell out of Star Trek, it was probably, um, it was a little after Generations, I think, and that was like the end of a close to a 10-year stretch of when I'd been just really obsessed with the show and like you going to conventions and um I didn't mind Generations. I wasn't thrilled about it, but clearly TOS was kind of over or ending at the very
Yeah.
least, even though most of the actors, well, they were all still alive at that point. But I was also, in college and starting to feel like, well, maybe why am I wasting my time with this sci-fi show? I need to be doing more sophisticated stuff, and so I
Yeah.
walked away from it for quite a while. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. It's funny how life draws you back to, hey, maybe I did have it right when I was a kid. This is pretty awesome. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that kind of got my hand forced with 2009 and being
Mm,
excited that it's coming back. And, that first film, I I liked, I enjoyed. Um, Everything else after that is stuff that my mom told me not to talk about it. If you don't have anything good to say,
right.
don't say anything at all. But yeah. How did you get into Mr. Leslie? I was curious about that.
Oh yeah. So I guess I started Subcommander Tal. I think it was Halloween of 2020. Yeah, Halloween of 2020, because I remember I had no social media up until that point. I didn't do Facebook. I still don't. I didn't do, Instagram, none of that. I was just not interested. But you're at home during the lockdown, you've got more time. And I would like lurk on Twitter without having an account, just reading things here and there. And I don't even remember how I stumbled across the live tweeting that TOS Saturday Night does. And I'm like, whoa, there's other people who know a lot about the show. I thought I knew everything about this show. I need to get on this and like show off what I know. But it quickly became, so I got the account and I wanted to pick a name. I picked Subcommander Tall because it was like obscure, but not too obscure. And quickly I began to realize, rather than this being a chance to show off trivia knowledge, it was just fun to interact with people and like make some connections. So Mr. Leslie came about maybe 6 months later after that. I mean, there's a lot of accounts like that. I mean, that are impersonating a character,
Right.
stay completely in character, and some are kind of funny. That Riker
Parody
Googling
accounts,
one,
yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen Riker Googling, but that's hilarious.
Riker
Um,
Googling. I gotta check that one
yeah, check that one out. So I thought, well, I want to do one from a TOS perspective and have it be, just like really deep dive. Like some of the jokes in there you wouldn't even get really unless you'd watched this stuff 1,000 times. So
out. Yeah.
um so I wasn't sure like to what extent it was gonna be popular or reach out to other people, because it was sort of, like I say, obscure. But yeah, it's been fun. And for a while I tried to do one every day, but I've just, it's hard to keep thinking of new things. So
Yeah. His
now it's more like once a
personality,
week.
it just gets me every time. It's like a dry, sarcastic wit. I don't know if you remember. I think Stephen Wright is the comedian, just a very dry wit, sarcastic kind of
Okay.
point. But yeah, I always get that from that. It's just awesome.
Good. Good. Yeah. No, it's fun. It's fun to try to come up with things for that. And sometimes I'll be like at lunch at work and I'll sit by myself and just like I'm thinking of something for Mr. Leslie, like just going over episodes in my head. And so coworkers will come up, "What are you doing?" Like, "I'm creating content. That's what I'm doing. I'm creating content."
Mind your own, don't worry.
Yeah. But he's been fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, another thing that I noticed, I saw you. This is more on the personal side because you travel, and I love history. I love, I've been to Egypt. I've been to
Oh, wow.
Athens,
Oh, wow. Wow.
uh, other places. Mykonos, it's part of Greece.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but I've seen you got some things yourself. How many places you been
Yeah.
to? Or
Well, I wouldn't say, and this is mostly pre-pandemic. I wouldn't say I was a global globetrotter, but I've had a real interest in like Mesoamerican Maya Aztec archaeology forever, for a long time. I mean, it's
yeah,
really as strong an interest as Star Trek. So there was a period there, maybe another 10 or 11 year period where I was going down to like Central America or the Yucatan or, in that region pretty much every other year, and like just finding, it's you find one site you want to see, and then there's another one you want to see next time, and then another one, but you want to visit the old ones again. So yeah, I've been there probably down in that region, maybe 10 times or so over the
wow, that's
course of the
awesome.
past 15 years. And just yeah, no, that's I find the history fascinating. I mean, I got into it, I don't know how much info you want on that, but I got into it from just the story, that story of, a Europe meeting the new world, and like how
Mhm.
these people were coming from just a totally different cultural perspective, and just the events of how Cortez was able to make this happen, and like, all the good and the bad that was all tangled up in that. And
Yeah,
it was
it is
fascinating.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Were
So
you
that's
able? I forget there's a pyramid, and I don't want to butcher the name. Is you can't walk up the pyramid anymore, but I know you used to be able to walk up the pyramid in the past in Mexico. Were you able to make it up to any of those?
some of them they let you climb, some of them they don't. I mean, the I'm not sure which one you mean. The ones that Teotihuacan, which is probably like the largest site
Yeah,
in
I
the
think that's
central
the one.
Mexico. Yeah,
Yeah.
they still were letting you, as of last time I was there was probably 2016, I guess. They were still letting you climb up those then, but I think to some extent it depends on how the stability of it. I mean, I know there's in Tikal, that site in Guatemala, which famously you see at the end of the first Star Wars movie. That's where
Yeah,
the Rebel
yeah.
Fortress is, and the little temple sticking up. Um, they're much narrower. Structurally, they're not as stable, so they don't let people climb up them anymore. I mean, I think eventually you're not going to be able to climb up any of them, so enjoy it while you can. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, eventually the sands of time will probably make it so nobody can stand up on them.
Yeah, yeah. Although, what's interesting is you go to these places and you're swept away by this sense of being in the past, and it's this jungle, and you're hearing monkeys, and you're seeing this pyramid. And what you don't realize is that it's totally different from how it would have looked in its day. I mean, in the
Yeah.
first place, they've all been heavily restored, most of them with 20th century technology. I mean, just like cement and things like that,
Ah,
because they were just piles of rubble. Egypt is different because it's such a dry climate. There wasn't the same, like, you don't get trees taking root and like breaking down stone. But they also would have been painted. They would have been totally different, reds and blues and yellows.
yeah, I
And
mean, what is it, granite? I think they might have used or marble on the pyramid. So
mm,
it just would have been this completely white, shimmering
mm,
uh pyramid with the gold plated top. You know,
yeah,
I just recently watched a YouTube video that it tries to explore what the sites would have looked back
yeah.
then versus what they look now, and they do pretty awesome CGI effects, to
Oh, neat.
yeah. If I find that video, I'll post it on
Yeah,
YouTube.
I'd be curious if they do. I mean, I've seen, like illustrations kind of reimagining it, but that would be neat to see. And then knowing that this whole jungle that is so evocative when you're in like Chiapas or southern Mexico or whatever, that would have all been cut down. I mean, it would have been cornfields all around. So that just grew up after the civilization sort of collapsed. But it's anyway, yeah, no, it's fascinating. If there was a real Maya Twitter or Aztec Twitter, I would be into that. But as far as I can tell, there isn't the same kind of
Yeah.
community out there.
Yeah, no, I'm forever grateful for Mr. Peter there, because
Yeah.
just like you, I went on to Twitter. I've had Twitter maybe since 2009.
Oh
I
wow.
I
Okay.
got on it to win tickets to Conan O'Brien when Conan O'Brien left his show and he was going on this nationwide kind of tour and he was giving away tickets on Twitter. So that's how I started it. I
Oh
didn't
wow.
touch it for another 10 years.
Yeah.
Never looked at it. And then, like you said, during the pandemic, I started going on there, but I used that search button. Hey, I wonder what they got on here for Star Trek. I saw something with Peter and one of the
Hmm.
prompts. I asked him, and then all of a sudden, kind of
Yeah.
went for there. So I'm
Oh, good, good. Well, he's
definitely
such a nice
grateful for
guy
that.
too, and I mean I mean, really, those prompts, the live tweeting and the prompts are what really kind of ensconced me in this community now. Like, I feel like I
Yeah, I
know
gotta try
people,
that
and it's
live tweeting. It's really hard though. I mean, I think you guys meet later on in the evening, and whether or
yeah,
not you're watching it on the H&I or whether or not you're starting from, you know, uh,
everyone's on their own like a
yeah,
disc, or they're
Paramount
streaming it,
Plus or
or
something.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe I'll give it a shot. We'll see.
It's fun. I mean, it is a little bit schizophrenic because you're sort of watching the episode, but then you're also like typing stuff out, or um but it's a nice community. So yeah.
Yeah, totally awesome about your last concert, not concert, convention there. You got to talk to the man, the myth, the legend himself. That's pretty awesome. I only ever got to meet James Doohan from TOS. I got to
Mm,
meet him. I didn't get a picture, but I got his autograph.
yeah.
So that's pretty awesome.
Well, they
But
didn't even used to do pictures back in the day, right? I mean, like when we were going to conventions back then,
yeah,
I mean, some of them wouldn't even sign. It's such a totally different scene now. It's better in some ways, worse in some ways, but they were
yeah.
like, they were a lot more inaccessible. The idea of like sidling up to someone and taking a selfie and then shelling out $60 for that. I mean, that was not a thing, but
No, it
so
wasn't.
it's funny how it's changed.
Yeah, I think it's become more of a market, right? And I think as the generations, and I'm
Hmm.
speaking of the actors, they they used to hate being pigeonholed into the role. They could never find any roles after that. I think
Yep.
it changed probably around next generation DS9 where they figured they could make a life, out of
Yeah.
this and start making money and doing these kind of appearances. A cameo is a thing now,
Yeah. Yeah.
so you're definitely right. Things have changed, but they always do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. How was it though, meeting Mr. Shatner?
Yeah, it was it was so fun. I'm so glad I went to that convention, because I had gone to many back in say the late mid to late 80s, early 90s. But we've already talked about a little how they were different, and they were purely Star Trek conventions. Maybe you'd have some,
Star
I don't
Wars.
know. Yeah, maybe yeah, you'd have some stuff on the side, but it was basically just Star Trek. So this thing, GalaxyCon, is a lot more multi-genre. So you've got Marvel people, a ton of anime people,
Yeah.
like video game stuff. It's like everything. Star Trek was just a small. In fact, it's funny because do you know the game Halo? Or
Yeah.
so the main Master Chief is a character, right? Is he the main character? I don't know. There's some girl where I work who's like obsessed with Master Chief, and the guy who does the voice was there. So I said, okay, I'll stand in line for her and get her. He does little voice recordings. His
Yeah.
line was twice as big as like
Oh,
Jonathan Frakes or anybody else. So like, oh, this is different. But
that's
yeah, I
okay.
mean, yeah, I've seen William Shatner a few times now. I mean, actually, several times in the past few years up at Ticonderoga. Um, but this was the first time, and it's always a good interaction, but I really enjoy this interaction of just being able to ask the question. And I really tried to think about a question that would, I don't know, turn him on a little bit more, because he gets so bored of Star Trek questions,
Yeah.
and he gets yeah, rightfully so. I mean, come on, 60 years of this. So I wanted to, but
And you
so I
haven't even been involved in it since
yeah.
1994, practically.
That's yeah. I mean, the kids who were born then are what? They're almost 30.
Yeah, which
Um,
trips me out, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I asked him about his Raw Nerve show. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but the guy is legitimately a good interviewer. I don't know
Hmm.
what that appeared on. It was streaming for a little while. He probably did like 12 episodes of that, but and I've always been struck, like when he's getting interviewed, like whether it's for the Jeff Bezos the rocket thing he did, he'll often turn the interview around and start asking the interviewer questions.
Mm.
So anyway, I asked him a question about that and was delighted to hear his long, slightly rambling but thoughtful response. And he called me by name, which was a thrill. So
Yeah,
yeah, that was definitely a highlight.
that is great. Hopefully one day I can make it to, what do you call it? Tigranda? What is that? The
Ticonderoga, Ticonderoga.
Ticonderoga, yeah.
Yeah,
Hopefully I can
yeah.
make it out there one day. That seems really awesome.
Are
And
you
then
near that part of the country at all, or?
no, but my brother is.
Hmm.
So I'm hoping he lives in Virginia. So I'm
Okay.
hoping to make it there eventually. He just moved there 2 years ago.
Okay.
Um, and hoping to make it to the Smithsonian because I know Star
Yeah.
Trek has some stuff inside there, and I've just never been to the nation's capital.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Well,
I,
if yeah,
I
if you
think
do, look me up.
Tigranda is close to, it's closer than where I am currently. I'm in
It,
Arizona.
oh
Um,
God, yes, yeah. So
yeah.
it's closer than that. It's still probably an 8 hour car ride, so it's not like real close to DC. I mean,
Okay.
but it's well maybe 7 hours if you're gunning it a little bit, um, but it's doable if it's important. I mean, it is such a fabulous site. I mean, the only downside is there really is nothing else in that area. I mean, if you like hiking, if you like outdoors,
I
which I
do.
do,
Yeah. So that
so
would be
then
a
you can,
destination.
yeah,
Yeah.
so you can make it work. But I mean, you can see everything there is to see in that place in 2 hours comfortably, and then sort of like what else do you do?
Yeah. Linger
But it's
about.
it's a great site. It's a great site though.
Well, Adam, Subcommander, this has been awesome. I do appreciate you taking the time to BS a little with me
Yeah.
and kind of get this going. Um, Hopefully I'll post it and see where it goes. And I know Mr. Chris reached out to me, so hopefully I'll be able to get on board with Chris and a couple other people and see where this goes. But I appreciate you being the guinea pig for my first run here.
Yeah, no, well, it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it. So yeah, continue.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Are you and Sohail still doing the weekend things?
He's still doing them. It's pretty erratic. It's just life intervening. So he's probably
Yeah,
not doing it every week right now. I, I haven't joined as much as I did for the original series because also I've had stuff, but
yeah,
I'm still committed. He's like, if I can make it and he's doing it, then I'll be there.
cool.
So yeah.
Yeah, I know you bought your gear for using your gear more often. Is that the headphones? Is that the
Oh,
new?
yeah. Well, no, this I had, yeah, but no, I
Oh,
bought
okay.
this microphone, which was
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, put it to
um,
use. Don't
yeah,
waste the
yeah,
money.
that's right.
All
Uh,
right, Adam, I appreciate it, man. I will see you, I guess, on Twitter, on the Bird
yeah,
app or the
that's
Dog app now, I
yeah.
guess.
Oh God, yeah. Anyway, okay. Well, nice to talk to you, Mario.
Nice talking to you, Adam. Take care, man.
Bye, bye.
Bye.